Former Springbok captain John Smit proved that there is life after rugby, especially where being active is concerned. He took part in the iconic mountain biking stage race, the Kolisi 2C. Riders took on 200 kilometers of trails from Underberg to Scottburgh in KwaZulu-Natal. Smit and the South African Rugby Legends Association did the adventure version of the event, which covers the same trails but over 3 days. The man himself joins us now for a quick chat about all that. A very good morning to you, John, and thank you so much for joining us. You've always been active, you've always been a big fan of mountain biking, but why this particular race?
Yeah, good morning. I guess the mountain bike is quite a popular post-rugby tool, I guess, for rugby players. It incorporates all the things I think that we got so used to for such a long time. You got to have a bit of discipline, you got to get up in the mornings, you got to, I guess, watch what you eat, some more than others. Joel Stransky is definitely watching what he eats a lot more than what I'm watching. And that's probably why he came second in the adventure at the Kolisi 2C. So for us, the adrenaline, the camaraderie, it feels like being back on tour again. And, you know, this week we went through some of South Africa's greatest trails, you know, from through that Underberg all the way through to the South Coast. Even after the floods, the work that Farmer Glenn and his crew have done to get those trails back to where they should be, and the quality of riding through the most beautiful country in the world with a couple of your ex-teammates, Joel Stransky, Butch James, Warren Brosnan, Trevor Halstead, Matt Pennyfather, and so many others over the 14 to 15 years that we've done this race. It's amazing for us to be able to, I guess, ride together. We partner with DSV, who bring clients, and we meet new people, and we feel like we're back on tour again without all the bumps and bruises. Well, unless you fall.
Unless you fall, indeed. But John, for somebody who's no longer that active, where it used to be week in and week out, day in and day out, where you were training, you were preparing for matches and such, so you were always sharp with your injury when you were still active. And then even though when you did get injured, it was a matter of rehabilitation. It's you working on your body, chiseling your body. Now that you're not doing all of that week in and week out, how difficult is it to prepare for 260 kilometers of trails?
I love your terminology of chiseling my body. I'm not sure my body's ever been chiseled, even in my prime. So, yeah, look, I think an event like the Kolisi 2C for us for all riders is attainable. How you want to do it, how fast you want to do it, is probably dependent on how much training you've put in. By no means do I put the same amount of effort in with having to work and with kids and that. So there's no ways you can put the kind of time in that you put in when you're a rugby player into cycling. Although, you know, it does present itself for a healthy lifestyle. You go to bed a little bit earlier. You probably eat a little bit less, and you train a little bit earlier in the morning, and so it does certainly help your lifestyle. But I think the beauty of this event is that you don't have to be a professional cyclist. You don't have to beat yourself up 7 days a week. You just got to do enough to get you through the 3 days.
John, you're somebody that spent much of your career playing in KwaZulu-Natal. You were based in KwaZulu-Natal. This event, this mountain biking race, took place in KwaZulu-Natal. We know that it is month to the day, I think, that KwaZulu-Natal was hit by those devastating floods. Just, you know, your thoughts on the floods, your thoughts on, you know, the work that has been done post the floods, and just what such events mean for the province. You know, what does it say to the province about life continuing, or life going back to what was once something that we could call normal?
Look, I must say it does stand out, the amount of damage that's been done to Natal. One looks at what's happened a few months ago, and then the flooding now a couple of weeks ago. Just the sort of the land washed away, and the highway on the way back to the airport. It is incredible just how well the crew around this event managed to get this event going. And I think it's important because Natal's going to have to stand up and fight and get back in terms of fixing all that's been damaged. For us, it's a privilege to be able to ride in an event like that. The SA Legends have already started doing food drops and assisting with schools and feeding programs where people haven't had access to food already. So riding this race gives a bit of an awareness to the SA Legends and what we do. We don't just help in the development of rugby in the game. We help wherever we can in the communities, and Natal is a community that needs help desperately, and certainly the fighting spirit from the people that live inside of it to get it back to where it used to be.
Let's look at a bit of rugby. I mean, you know we could never avoid that, especially when we have you on. John, yesterday, Kolisi was given his flowers. He was shown some love by his alma mater, Grey High School. He was honoured by having the main field renamed the Kolisi Field. Just speak to me about the importance of honouring your stars while they're firstly still active and secondly still alive.
I saw all of that unfold on social media. It was just amazing to see the kind of work that Sia does outside of the rugby field. I think the most beautiful thing about Sia is that he's an absolute warrior on the field. He leads by example, and he's taken us to the greatest trophy we could win in the World Cup. And hopefully he'll do so again in a year's time. But it's the amount of effort that he puts into acknowledging where he came from, his pathway to greatness, and assisting others to follow the same path. And I think yesterday was probably a telltale sign of the sort of magnanimity of Sia as a character, let alone just a rugby player. So it's wonderful to be able to have such an icon as a captain and know that he's going to lead us to a possible, well, hopefully, I guess we all hope for a back-to-back, but to another World Cup victory, hopefully.
The United Rugby Championship has been a competition that, although South African franchises started off fairly poorly, have managed to pick up, especially this year, where we've been hosting our northern counterparts. Just your take on how the 4 franchises are looking. I mean, I would obviously want you to give me a bit more on your former team, the Sharks, who are also very busy in the transfer market. But just overall, especially when you consider that we're about to take on Wales, or the Boks, and you're speaking about hopefully we get that defense of our Rugby World Cup title next year. Just the importance of the URC and how our 4 franchises have picked up momentum and are looking good.
Look, I'm a big fan of the URC, and I'm a big fan of the move north. A lot of people were sort of suspect around what it would do, and we started off on a shaky leg when we had to play all those games away, but it was always going to be an adaptation in terms of the different weather, the different fields, the different teams that we're playing, and our guys have definitely made the most of their home leg. Of the 4 teams, hopefully we'll sneak 3 to the top 8. The Lions have been disappointing if you think back to how good they were a couple of years ago. So the Lions are not in the fold. But this competition, I think, will only make us stronger. 4 test series against the likes of the northern home nations like a Wales. I think the challenge will become greater. I don't know if we did enough away from home in the beginning of the URC to get ourselves enough points to get home playoffs. And home playoffs, I think, are going to be critical to any team that wants to win this URC. From a Welsh home series, I think we well placed against a team that's probably in transition, had a few injuries. See, this is my young daughter, also very interested in what's going to happen with work. Yeah. And basically having I think a reasonably good start to the international season against Wales.
Our presence in the United Rugby Championship has now starved Southern Hemisphere rugby of our stars, of our franchises, and New Zealand Rugby has admitted that they do miss us in the Super Rugby competitions. Would that be to our advantage, that New Zealand Rugby is not sharpening its skills against the world champions, against franchises that boast world champion players? I mean, you look at the Sharks, for example, they have all of the Rugby World Cup winning Springboks in that team, but yet New Zealand franchises, the Crusaders, the Chiefs and such, do not get to test themselves against that kind of quality. Do you think that'll work to our favour as the Springboks when it comes the necessary tests?
I think Morena, you've probably given my opinion in your question as well, and I think you and I probably agree. And again, time will only tell, but I do think that it's a significant challenge for New Zealand to get themselves up against opposition when it comes to internationals, because they're playing the same teams over and over again. There is a physicality, an edginess towards that South African teams bring, both from a franchise and international level. I mean, be that as it may, I do think that they are worse off. I think we still at least get to play them in test matches every year. The opposition that we're playing is laden with internationals from New Zealand, Australia, Fiji, Samoa, Georgia, England, Ireland, France. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I just find it fascinating. The URC is actually 3 tournaments in one, because as a spectator now, I'm looking at how the Currie Cup fares, so like how the Lions, who put a URC team against a young Bull side in the Currie Cup yesterday, fared. And then I'm also looking at the results of the ERC, the Heineken Cup, which is the tournament that we want to get our teams into, our franchises into. And the results of that are so important because now Leinster winning means that they've got to still play 2 teams again, 2 tournaments. And so there's just so much going on that makes it so much more interesting. Whereas, I think we did get a little bit bored around watching the same Super Rugby teams every week, every year. So I think we're in a better place, and I do think New Zealand probably will end up missing us, but time will tell in terms of, I guess, world rankings in the next 2 or 3 years in terms of where everyone sits.
Most definitely. John, thank you so much for joining us. It is always a pleasure just having you present here on ENCA.